Hello, everybody. Hello, and welcome to the stream. I'm the company's expert, and let's talk business. There are 5 of you here. Thank you for being here. Congratulations. You guys are awesome. You're here for some self-improvement, and we're going to talk about how to succeed in your career over multiple methods. So if you want to go the traditional way and get a job and climb the corporate ladder and be an employee, perhaps rise up, that's one thing we're going to talk about. Another thing is going to be if you are learning some general life skills to perhaps go your own way, not necessarily be an employee, maybe be an entrepreneur or an employer or a small business owner. We're going to talk about that too. So thank you for being here. And I want to hear from you. So if you are here, you should see the chat and get in the chat, say where you're listening from. And if you have questions that are related to business, we're not really going to talk about job interviews today. This is a different live stream for everything other than job interviews, because I talk a lot about that on every other occasion. So that's what we're doing. So Rafi is here. Hey, Rafi. You've been so helpful. Thank you very much. I'm glad. I'm glad that's worked out. And Who We Are is here. That's an awesome name, by the way. I like to refer to myself in the third person. I feel that if I want to do something, then collectively, I can make it happen. United Arab Emirates, UAE, right on. That's what I love about these live streams. You get to talk to people from all over the world. It's really cool. Yes. So just some intro, some housekeeping stuff to get over with. I do these live streams on Sundays and on Wednesdays every week, and at this time on both days. And I don't keep these on my main channel. These get archived over on my second channel, The Company's Expert 2. So if you are not subscribed to that channel, you should go right now and subscribe to The Company's Expert 2. You get even more of me, and including these live streams, if you ever want to go back and listen to any of those or check those out. I suspect it won't be a problem too much today, but if for whatever reason I don't get to your question, or the stream, the chat is scrolling so fast that I don't notice it or something, do a super chat. I will prioritize all super chats. I will answer all the questions properly. So that's something that you should do. And as always, a shout out to my Patreons and to my channel members. If you want even more of me, slightly more advanced topics usually, join my channel. That's by clicking the join button. And you get an extra video from me every week. So I even put a little thing right there so that I wouldn't have to keep mentioning this stuff all the time. But yeah, there you go. So thank you all for being here. So Waleed is here, if I'm saying that right. Let's talk business from bottom up. From the start and the first push are the most critical steps. Yes, they are. And, it's interesting because there's a lot of things that I hear in terms of people giving other people advice on business. And hey, we've all got our own opinions on things, and our opinions are based on our experience. For the most part, and everybody has different experiences, but I've seen a lot of different things, and I've tried a lot of different things. And the one interesting thing is when interested parties give advice for you to start a business or be an entrepreneur or anything like that, or they give career advice and they have an ulterior motive, right? They're actually trying to sell something. Now, full disclosure, I've got these 2 courses here. Right? Okay. But I'm not actively necessarily trying to push you to buy them. If they work for you, if they align with what your goals are, great. I give you sort of my version of everything in one compact place. But I've seen a lot of other interested parties that are basically wrapping up a sales pitch in disguise of advice. And that's something that's quite common. The most heinous of all these are from the financial services sector, where I feel they're doing the world a great disservice, because the very latest trend over the last 15 years or so is for the lenders, the big banks, or divisions of them, to try and sell more loans to people by specifically targeting the entrepreneur market. And so if you're a young person and you want to start a business, you get all these people telling you that the first thing you need to do is get like a big loan, get lots of money, right? And of course, you get the loan through them, right? But at the same time, if you really look at what they're trying to convince you to do, it's a loan. It's nothing where they believe in you, okay? They don't take any risk whatsoever. So you could take the money, start something, and then fail, and it doesn't matter. You still have to pay back the money. It's not like they're going in as a shareholder, as a partner, where they take the risk with you. Nope. They're just trying to sell you a loan as they would to someone who wanted to buy a house or something, or a car. They give you a loan and they make the money off the loans, right? That's what they're in the business of doing. So they're doing what they do. They're salespeople, right? But I find it a little underhanded that they disguise that as some kind of public good. We're here to help you. We're here to ensure you succeed. We're providing these services to help you. Really, it's just motivated by self-interest. And I've seen a lot of that. And I know a lot of people that have, sort of taken that advice. And so they go out and they get themselves a big loan to start a business. And they start spending money on all kinds of stuff that you don't need to do. And then their first idea doesn't end up being a smash hit. And they fail. And now they're saddled with a huge debt that they have to pay back. And that pretty much kills them being able to try again, because now they have to get money. They have to get a conventional job, or they have to put aside their hopes and dreams and life goals in order to just make money so they can pay off their loans. It's really unfortunate. So my first advice to a lot of people, if you want to try something, and remember, the best way to learn something is to try it. You can listen to advice from me or from anyone else, and that's maybe a good start or a good motivation. But at the end of the day, nothing makes you confident in your opinions and maybe your advice or your knowledge than having done it yourself and you've seen firsthand how it works or how it doesn't work, right? So this is my advice to a lot of people. Listen to advice in the beginning, but then go out and try things. Go and verify the advice that you're given. And try and do it in a way that's, you're not betting the farm on it. You're not taking huge risks, especially financial risks. You don't need to. You really don't. You don't have to spend tons of money just to try things, generally. So, yeah. So Rob is here. Rob says, I normally don't chat on YouTube, but I just wanted to say thanks for all your videos. That's very nice of you, Rob. I'm glad to hear that. You have brightened my day a little. They have been really helpful, and now I have a fantastic job with everything I want. Congratulations! You obviously knocked it out of the park. That's an American expression. You knocked it out of the park. It's a baseball expression, and who doesn't love baseball? I'm Canadian, so I don't play baseball. I never have. I went to a baseball game when I was like 6, and I didn't understand what was going on, and it was really boring, to be honest, but that was just my experience. Yeah, so thank you very much, Rob. That's very kind. I'm glad you're here, and hopefully you'll get something out of it. And if you have any questions about business type stuff, feel free to ask. Rafi says, question: when you know the candidate is right, but the superiors have a different motive, or say they have someone who they want to hire, conducting interviews, we learn it was a waste of time. After conducting interviews, we learn it was a waste of time. Well, listen, Rafi, like I said at the beginning, I'm pretty much here to talk about everything but job interviews, just as an escape from that. When you know the candidate is right, but the superiors have a different motive. Well, look, that's called politics, and there's an area of business. If you take, say, an MBA, like, my course or any other MBA program, you learn business. One component of business is something called organizational theory, sometimes called organizational behavior. And that's the study of how people behave in organizations like businesses. And so if you're wondering about like all that power politics and ulterior motives, things like this, that explains how people behave, and it explains all that behavior. And if you're anything like me, before you learned this stuff, you look at these real life situations like you're describing in job interviews where you have the best candidate, but the best candidate doesn't get hired. Instead, they have other motivations where they hire somebody else, and they appear to be totally confusing and random, and you just don't understand it. You can't figure it out. Why would people behave this way, and how does it work? Well, that area of study, organizational theory or organizational behavior, after you learn it, all of that stuff, the weird things that we observe in, say, large organizations, it all falls into place. It all makes sense. You understand exactly what's going on. And, helping to understand what's going on really helps you navigate it. Okay? That's a very important point. Knowledge is good in the sense that, if you understand something, then you can help predict it, right? So that's one reason why I recommend to a lot of people that, you learn a little bit about business. It's not necessarily that you want to go into business, you want to be an entrepreneur, you want to, do that kind of thing. But just by virtue of the fact that you have a job and you want to have a secure job, a good job, you want to be successful in your job, that's kind of motivation enough to justify the effort and time it takes to, say, read one book on organizational theory. That's what I recommend. So, I'm not here to sell anything. I mean, go out and look up organizational theory or organizational behavior. You could look at the Wikipedia page as maybe a starting point, and you can learn what it is. And then if you find that sort of semi-interesting, get yourself a book. Go on Amazon or wherever and get like a book. You don't have to pay a lot of money. Just pay $5, $10. Get like an actual textbook on it. Okay. Because anybody with who is the education of a 13-year-old, you can read these books and you can understand them. It's not like engineering or law or medicine where you really need to know that stuff, have studied it for years to make head or tails of a textbook, right? This stuff, anyone can pick it up and just read it and understand it. So that's what I'd recommend. And it will explain things like you're asking right there, the intuitive thing, hiring the best candidate. That's not happening because of other reasons. And I don't know what those reasons are. And I'd like to understand them. So that's what I'll say about that. Jet Tortoise says, it happened to me several times. An agent came to me on LinkedIn for a position relative to my position, which is offshore methods engineer, and asking for my CV. Okay. I guess I was not part of that conversation. Ravi says, thank you. No problem. Alex says, do you think young people job hop too often, would be better served by staying with a single company for a longer period of time? No, I don't. You're asking specifically about young people. I think young people should move around. They should get an understanding of the types of things that are out there, because, all you guys that have had different jobs, if you've had multiple jobs, that, there are different organizations, completely different cultures within those organizations, like how they act, how they behave, how they talk to each other, what type of behavior is acceptable, what type of behavior is not acceptable. Expectations about how you work and how much work you do. And, that varies wildly, right? And there's a hell of a lot of stuff out there. There's all kinds of stuff out there that's really cool that you are unaware of right now. And the more things that you experience, the more you get a broader view of what's actually out there. The other thing is that, one of the advantages of moving around a little, I mean, you don't want to like switch jobs after a month, repeatedly, right? But, you stay like a year, maybe 2 years, but then you jump around. Another advantage of that is, first of all, you realize how you can get a different job. If you stay in one place, for a long time and something happens to your job, okay, maybe you're laid off or maybe, something happens, getting a new job can be a bit intimidating, and you don't know where to start and you don't know where to look and all this kind of stuff. And that affects the outcome. Okay, so there you go. You also get a better self-impression, because different people that hire you will hire you for different reasons. They will appreciate different things you have, different traits, different experiences, different knowledge. So it can give you a better sense of your own value and your own self-worth. Okay, so the other thing is that the trend is for people to job hop more and more. That's been the long-term trend over the last at least 40 years, like probably 50 years, where people stay at each job on average for a shorter time. Okay, and the events of 2020 really threw that for a loop, because that disrupted a lot of the labor markets. And so, you got people looking for jobs that normally wouldn't be looking for jobs right then, right? Like all at the same time. So, no, when you're young, I recommend, the default thing is just to stay in the first place that gives you a job, right? As much as you have control over that, the default thing is just, there are forces that are making you stay, right? First of all, it's kind of scary to try and get another job, to quit your job and go look for others. Secondly, it's extra work. Who wants to do extra work? You have a job now. Why do a bunch of extra work to like find another one? The longer you stay, generally speaking, the more valuable you become. The more seniority you have, the better you are at your job because you've been doing it for longer. Like, these forces also persuade you to stay, right? So, and the longer you stay, the harder it is to sort of develop the impetus to go and try and jump to something else, right? So, for young people, I recommend that, stay long enough that you learn some stuff. You show that you're a good employee, that they've accepted you. You get over the learning curve. So like a year or two. But then start looking for something else, Now, obviously, if you've sort of struck gold and you found this amazing job that pays you way more than people your age and your industry make, or you just love it to death, you're absolutely content, you enjoy coming to work every day, you come to work with a smile every day, right? Okay, I mean, maybe you might want to stay a bit longer, right? But generally speaking, I'd recommend when you're young, look at different things, experience different things, okay? And that holds over for your career as it does in life, right? There's a lot of advantages to that. It can also be, like, look, between you guys and me, it can also be advantageous for your career in the sense that it makes you more effective, because this isn't recognized as much as it should be among recruiters and things. But I don't really care what they think. That, getting hired by recruiters is not, the be all end all that a lot of people think it is when you're young. The other advantage is that you've seen a lot of ways of doing something, okay? And as you move around to different organizations, have different jobs, you'll see that some people have things figured out and other people don't, okay? And if you go to a place that doesn't have a particular problem solved, but you've seen it solved in the past, you know exactly what to do to solve that problem, that makes you more valuable because you can just transplant the solution that you've seen work into this new environment where they don't know what to do. You're here to solve it for them. It's not like you're a genius. It's just that you've seen other people solve the problem. You know what they did. Now, when you come into this situation, you can apply that. And I mean, I've done that several times. People think you're a genius, you finally solved this thing that they've been struggling for years. What you didn't tell them, or what they were unaware of, was that all the while, this other place over here, okay, you can't see my hands. I'm sort of doing these very dramatic arm gestures here. Over here, this other place, the whole time had that problem all figured out, solved completely. They didn't even think about it because it wasn't an issue. They'd solved it years ago. Right? So the more you see, the more valuable you become, the more broad your knowledge base and experience base, and that only serves to help you in the long run. Rafi says, career question, how to learn about what courses or certificates we can do to enhance our career. I'm in facilities management. I sort of have talked about this on the last few live streams I've done. That's pretty easy, a problem to solve. Get yourself a LinkedIn account if you don't already have one, and then start doing searches. If you are in facilities management, and let's say you have a goal of being a certain position within facilities management, say, I don't know, building manager, okay, property manager or property district manager. Let's say that's your goal. That's like 2 levels above you or something. You want to get there, okay? So the question is, okay, if I want to get that job, what educational qualifications do I need? Do I need a certificate in this? Or do I need a degree in that, right? So here's what you do. You go on LinkedIn, you do a search for, say, in your region, like if you're living in a city or, a region of a country, whatever, and do a people search, okay, for individuals whose current job is, district property manager. Okay, so you do that search and a whole bunch of people will show up as the results. And then start looking at those people's profiles and see what they have. Now, if every single, district property manager in your region, if they all have a certain certificate, chances are that you probably need that certificate to qualify to be promoted into that role. If they all don't have that certificate, then chances are you don't need that certificate to get into that role, okay? So it'll tell you things like that. You can see real world kind of the state of people in those positions. And you can use that to decide what maybe you should do, okay? If that's your goal. I mean, that applies for experiences, that applies for education, that applies for accomplishments, What it doesn't tell you is it doesn't give you their personal traits. So maybe these people, they're very good communicators, or they're extremely bright, or they play the political games very well. Whatever other traits they have, that will not be on there, obviously. So it doesn't give you the full picture, but it gives you at least, what credentials they have, what their work experience is, and what they've done. So that's something you can do. Now, if you want to get the other things that I just mentioned, like you don't know what their personality type is, you don't know what their personal traits are that might have helped them, you can get an insight into those by doing informational interviews with them. Okay, and this is an incredible life skill that I keep mentioning because I think it's very valuable. The ability to contact someone and say, hey, can we talk? You do this in such a way that they say, sure, and you guys meet in person and you conduct an informational interview with them, which is basically a conversation where you ask them about what they know, about what their opinions are. It's an enjoyable conversation for them because they get to say their opinions and someone's interested in them, right? It's very flattering. And it's educational for you. You get to see who they are. Right? It's also, as a secondary benefit, it's also good for now you have connections. You have all these people in high places that you now know personally. That can help too, depending on what you try and do. So, so that's a way to get research into that kind of stuff. And then at the end of this, you will know exactly how to, be qualified to be a, district property manager, as an example, or any other position. University Pains, could you please share the best way to contact you to address topics outside of today's scope? Well, I mean, this is basically the way, this is why I do the live streams. So if you have a question, feel free to ask. You can start by explaining your name. I think that's an interesting name, University Pains. University is painful. Some of that is just unavoidable. If you want to do something great, if you want to do something hard, it's going to be painful. And there's no way around that. That's what separates people who obtain that qualification versus people who don't. Not everyone can hack the tough stuff or the valuable stuff. That's why it's valuable. So, but some of it is needlessly painful. I'm the first to admit that. Like most people, I had a bad experience in university. I mean, I passed and everything, and I got my degrees, but they don't make it easy sometimes. Put it that way. There's things like they could do better. But feel free to ask a question. Just ask. You don't have to give personal information. Just whatever question. Who We Are says, I have an opportunity to work for myself. Awesome. I think it's like consultation work. It's to make improvements to the working culture, people, processes, and business. I've never done this before. Well, if you've never done it before, but an opportunity presents itself, that's the time to learn to, I hate to use cliches, like to just jump in and do it. You have the butterflies in your stomach, right? And the way these things usually work out, okay, if you feel you might be able to do it, but it's a bit of a stretch, usually if you just jump in and do it, it goes okay. Okay, the odds are is that it's going to work out. Okay, and don't be afraid of it not working out. Give it a shot. What do you lose by not doing it, by shying away from it? Like, if from what you've described, there's no real personal risk other than, you might be embarrassed or it's a waste of your time, nothing real, nothing serious. So if you've got the opportunity, do it. And, consultation work, I mean, I'm a consultant. The consultation work is really good. You can make money at that stuff because the costs are very low and the rewards are potentially very high. As opposed to something like manufacturing, right? Where the costs are high, the rewards are high, but the costs are high. So if you have the opportunity, go for it. Working for myself, I mean, look, I'm not a fan of a lot of these people that try and persuade primarily young people to go and do things that are extremely risky, like especially financially. Okay? The thing is, depending on what business you're wanting to get into, depending on what personal goals you might have, some things, in order to do them, they require money. Okay? Some things require money. Like, let's say you wanted to have your own manufacturing company. You wanted to manufacture some niche product, right? If you're American, it would be a niche product, but for everybody else, it would be a niche product. And, it costs money to buy equipment, to hire people, to, find a facility like a building or whatever. Okay. So yes, if you try and jump to that, yes, you need all this startup capital, right? But the thing is, in most situations, if we just exercise our brains, we can usually find ways of, instead of trying to pay for something, we can usually try and find a way to eliminate the need for something. Maybe you rent the equipment. Maybe you start by providing services. And then when the money starts coming in, you start getting customers. Then you start investing that money into more of the manufacturing side of things. Maybe by changing the plan of what you do and how you do it, you don't need that money initially. You can start off with something that you can do right now. Consulting for one, or some scaled down version of what you want. It's not that you're going to do that scaled down version as your business. That's just a stepping stone, right? You do the scaled down version so you can have money coming in the door now. You don't have costs to get started, and then you invest that money to pay for phase 2, which is ramping up more, where you have to buy more machines or something, or maybe a timeshare thing, or maybe a government sort of grant where you could use their facility part-time, or, there's all kinds of options out there. But a lot of times people don't think in terms of that. They just think of okay, I want to have a company that does this. They employ 50 people, they have all this stuff, so I have to jump to that. The problem also is that if you try and jump to that, and let's say it's a success, okay? Now you have an incredible amount of interest on loans to pay back. So all your profit goes to paying back those loans, or a huge chunk of it. So you're basically in business to pay back the banks at that point, because you don't own anything outright. So what's the point of that? What's the point of doing the thing that you've always wanted to do just to work for somebody else, and you have to pay them back and you don't get to keep money for yourself, really? Certainly not in the beginning. That's dumb, There are people that will convince you that, you have to take out big loans and take huge risks to get started, and you don't. You don't. If you look at their incentives, they're usually trying to sell you a loan, or they're trying to benefit in some way from you thinking that. So the great thing about consulting is that you can start now. I don't care. Anybody here, there are 36 people here. Let's say you wanted to do a consulting business. Let's say you had the opportunity to do a consulting business. Bam, you could start today. You got a phone, you can start now. Real life thunder. Career question. Through the Wisconsin GI Bill, I don't know what that is, because I'm not American, I qualify for free tuition up to the master's level. Okay, that's good. I am looking at pursuing an MBA, but in your experience, what should I look for in a program? Well, look, this is entirely motivated, well, not entirely, but it's motivated by self-interest. I have that course, okay? It's $100. That gives you a preview of what an MBA program is, okay? So if you want some insight into it before you jump in and enroll and pay your money, that's an option, okay? Now, if you've decided on doing an MBA, but you don't know what specialty, okay? Obviously, you can research that if you kind of have any interest to begin with. That obviously helps. But I would, I created this course to help people, and this is one of the problems that I think it solves. It gives you a preview. I even state that in, the sort of description of the course and everything. If you're looking to perhaps take an MBA, like a full-blown MBA, but you just want to put your toe in the water and see if it's right for you or what it's going to involve, this is a way to get a preview. So you could check that out, okay? You could check that out if that works out. But what should I look for in a program? Listen, this has been my experience, okay? There's a lot of there's a lot of institutions, okay, universities and things, that will convince you that they have brand recognition. So if you have an MBA from a place that is not recognized, people won't hire you. If you have a MBA from a place they do recognize, they will hire you. That's what I've heard people say, okay? In my opinion, a lot of that is marketing. It's them saying whatever they need to say to convince people to enroll in their university and pay them money for tuition. A lot of that, I've heard that across different industries, and I've heard it in educational industry. People want to convince you that, like, oh, you know, we are different because people know us, right? A lot of times that's not true. Okay, now if you have an MBA from an Ivy League American university, okay, like Yale, Brown, Harvard, you know, those kind of places, yes, those are recognized, okay? But anything less than that, it's debatable whether it's recognized or not. It might be recognized in that particular city, okay, but maybe not outside that city, okay? So you're in Wisconsin. I mean, what's a city in Wisconsin? I don't even know. I don't have the geography of the United States memorized, but I don't know. Let's say there's Lafayette. There's usually a Lafayette in every American state, right? It's like a little town. Let's say you're in Lafayette, Wisconsin, and there's a University of Lafayette that offers MBA programs. That might be recognized in Lafayette, but if you want to get a job outside of Wisconsin, say, maybe, you know, the University of Lafayette is not recognized outside of Lafayette, really. People are not going to see that on your resume and go, oh, this is a highly qualified person, I should hire them. Okay. So you could do the thing I described like 10 minutes ago. You could do research on LinkedIn to see how prevalent people are. If they have an MBA from Lafayette University, you can do a people search on LinkedIn for MBAs from Lafayette University and look at the people results, the individuals, and see what jobs they're in. Now, if they're all like CEOs and executives, that says one thing. If they're all like entry-level jobs and, you know, worker-level jobs, that says something else. So that should tell you how valuable that brand recognition is. Okay. Now, the thing about an MBA is that there are no labs, right? It's not like if you're going to medicine or engineering or science, where the facilities of the university are a huge, huge kind of factor, right? You learn business by sitting in class and have someone talk to you, right? Basically a face-to-face version of what I'm doing here, you know, although I'm not teaching a lecture now. But, you know, this is basically it. Now, I've heard people say that they really like the group participation part of it. Okay. I'm an introvert. That's not particularly important to me. Hearing the opinions of other students isn't really that important to me. I wouldn't pay thousands of dollars to like have that necessarily. But that's just me. You know, other people are more extroverted and they like it. The other thing is that I don't really think that across the board you will make a lot of great connections. Okay, if you go to a very, very fancy, expensive, exclusive university like an Ivy League school in the States, for example, maybe, yes, because the sons and daughters of all the captains of industry basically are there. They're in your class. Now, if you're an extroverted type person and you like to make a lot of connections and make a lot of friends, you know, maybe that's something of value. But for most people, that's not really going to end up being too much of a factor. If you stay in your hometown or you stay in the town with the university, that might help you. Might. Okay. If you're trying to get hired at a company and one of your friends in university was the son of the person who owns the company, you know, That could conceivably happen. Does it always happen? No. But maybe you could play on that, but not outside your hometown, generally. So these are some of the factors, okay? I think if you're going to do it to learn whatever you want to learn and that you're interested in and that presumably is useful. Don't worry about any of the other stuff. Okay, and as I said, if you want to stick your toe in the water and see what you study, check out my course. For like if you're considering going in, like $100 is like nothing. So, I'd recommend that, obviously. That there's some self-interest, but I did create it for this type of situation. Our channel was meant to help find solutions in so-called university pains. Oh, okay. Okay. That makes sense. How do you move on in a job with little chance to move upwards? How do you move on in a job with little chance to move upwards? Well, if there's little chance to move upwards, there's not too much you can do. I mean, it's a job, right? You're working for somebody else. You work at their pleasure. They decide if they keep you. They decide how much you get paid. They're in charge, right? It's hard to move up if they don't want to promote you. Or, they might not want to promote you because they have no need to promote you because there's no call for it, right? So, yeah, I don't know what... I mean, other than intangible stuff, like, try and make friends and get along with people. I mean, But yeah, you serve at their pleasure. That's what employees do. You're working for somebody else. They're the boss. You do what they say, right? That's basically the relationship. It's a master-slave relationship, Like what you could do, I mean, this is not for everybody, but what you could do is you could learn, if you have an ambition to work for yourself someday, or you have an interest in that, what you could do is you could go and you could learn everything that they're doing. And then if you can't move upwards, eventually at some point in the future, you could essentially go independent. You could leave there and you could set up as, you could be self-employed doing the thing that you did at that job, only now you're working for yourself. Depending what you do, what industry you're in, and what the details are, that may be a possibility. And a lot of people do that. There are certain industries where a lot of people do that. For example, in HR, right? A lot of recruiters that work for staffing companies or they work for executive recruiters, they end up doing this. They sort of get a job at an executive recruiting company. They learn executive recruiting. And then after a year or two, they quit. And then they form their own executive recruiting company. And they do the same thing they were doing before, except that now they're working for themselves. So they don't have a boss, and they get to decide how they do it. Now, sometimes they're at a disadvantage because they don't quite have the brand recognition, right? But on the other hand, they're keeping all the money they make, and they're not giving 50% or more to somebody else. And there's very low barriers to entry because all you need to do HR is a phone, a computer, a desk, and possibly a room to do interviews in, which you can just go down to the local coffee shop and use that, in the beginning. So moving up without being promoted, I mean, that's maybe an option. However, if you work in mining or oil drilling or something like that, it's pretty much impossible to start up your own mining company yourself. You need about $1 billion to do that usually. And, so unless you have that lying around or in your back pocket. But for some people, that's a definite possibility. Waleed says, how can I acquire initial customers in my new business? Oh, that's a great question. I should just do a live stream just on that. That's an awesome question. Okay, here's what I'll say just to start off. If you're wondering this and you want to go deep, the answer to that question is basically found in learning marketing. That's what marketing is. Marketing is the scientific study of groups of customers or potential customers. Who they are, where they are, how they think, what they want, how to get that information, how to communicate to them, how to convince them to do business with you. All of that, that's marketing, okay? So what you're asking is one of the most fundamental marketing problems. How can I sort of go out and contact people, make contact with them in some way, and convince them to do business with me, right? Here's what I will say. If you are serious about this, there's a lot of people out there that advise that the first thing you do is you talk to friends and family. You get them to be your first customers. I completely disagree, okay? That's not the way to gain success. The problems with your friends and family is that they're going to do business with you on the strength of the fact that you are their family or you are their friend, okay? That's not, I mean, that's good in the sense that, okay, you get them as customers, but beyond that, you then hit this wall where like, okay, now you're trying to contact and persuade people who don't know you. And that's an entirely different problem, okay? Basically, you're going to have to answer 3 questions, okay? Who's my target audience, okay? How do I communicate to them? What's the best channel, right? Like, for example, you could have them see an ad, you could have them come to an event, or you could go to one of their events. You know, you could knock door to door. I mean, there's so many different ways to get a message to a potential customer, right? That's the second question. The third question is, what do I have to say to convince them to do business with me, right? So those are 3 questions that you need an answer to, okay? They're going to be specific to you, what you're doing, okay? I mean, it's hard to give sort of general advice, but like beyond that, beyond learning marketing, but I would say try stuff, okay? We have like social networking is an absolute gift from God when it comes to being able to start a business. You can reach like thousands of people. I don't care who you are. I don't care what your presence is on different social networking platforms, but like just today, you could reach thousands of people, okay? Just right now from your own home, cost of 0. And you could have them see a message or an ad. You could share a link. I mean, look at the platform we're talking on, like YouTube. You could put up a video, right? In the beginning, you know, it's not like millions of people see your video, but a few people do, right? Okay. And things like this. And, you know, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, all the newer stuff. I mean, you know, you can join groups where there's people of like special interest that they've already said, I'm interested in this. Well, you can join that group and then you can sort of get your message in front of people that are likely in the market for the thing that you're providing, right? Okay. So I would do that. And, you know, you can do this, as I say, for a cost of 0. So it's a matter of experimenting. I mean, I like, as I said, I'd love to do just an entire live stream on this. There's so much to this, and there's so many things you can do. It's actually quite inspiring. That's what we should do, actually. We should do a live stream on that. If anyone else is interested, let me know, because I'd love just to talk about that. Rafi says, as you stated before, being laid off and coming to another country to find a job, what do we need to take care of so that we get hired? First of all, for full disclosure, I've never done that myself. I've kind of been on the other end of it, where I've hired people or have had a part in the hiring process for people that are like new immigrants. They've just sort of come from another country. I've dealt with qualifications, so I know that side very well. Like you get someone that comes from a country halfway around the world, you know nothing about the country, it's a different language, and you have no idea, like the certification or the qualification they have, what skills does that mean that they have? You can't even read the qualification, right? Now, if this is a high level thing in a very large organization, there's ways of finding out. But for most companies, which are small or mid-size, you really don't know. And you're not going to like spend like thousands of dollars trying to find out, right? So it can be hit and miss process. There are organizations that will hire, when someone is like a new immigrant, they don't have any work experience in their host country. In my experience, there are places that will hire you. Some people won't. A lot of organizations say, no, you need work experience in your host country. That's what we look for. Otherwise, we're basically flying blind. We have no idea. I mean, you could be an axe murderer. Like, how would we know, So having work experience, having references is very important. Okay. What would be good for me is that if you have skills in a specific industry, it might be worth your while using tools like LinkedIn and Google Maps, right, to contact potential employers in advance, and ask them a few questions, okay? And I would use LinkedIn as the primary tool for that. You can see inside the organizations to the individuals, right? Now, I have a video that talks about how to do that, and I'll see if I can pull it up, if you just bear with me a second. It was a few weeks ago I did this. I've had to recommend this a few times because people ask questions where this would be the solution. And okay. So there's one. This probably isn't the best one, but this is one that I know of right off the hop, and it's called How Successful People Get Jobs. And I did it a few weeks ago. It's hard to find stuff in a hurry. Here we go. So let me see if I can. There we go. So this one right here, it's called How Successful People Get Jobs. And what it does is this shows you how to use Google Maps in conjunction with LinkedIn People Search. And you can find companies in your industry in a certain location. You can find all of those companies. Then you use LinkedIn to look inside of those companies to the individuals, and that's how you can start to make contact with them. Okay, so that's maybe a start. Check out that video. That'll be a start. And as you start talking to them, as you get a little bit of information, then you start to get a clearer picture of what you need to do specifically. I mean, the question that I would maybe try and ask is like, if I were to come to Winnipeg, I have skills in this area. Would you conceivably hire someone with these skills? Are you looking for someone with that? Or, if you wouldn't, what would you have to see to hire that person? Would they have to have experience, like host country experience? Something like that. And that'll gradually get you to fill in the blanks as to what you need to do. I would go to, one other note, I would go specifically to the CEO, to the highest person. Remember, CEOs, I was a former CEO. It's not a big deal. People freak out and they think like, oh my God, these are like billionaires. They're not. They're people like me. They're people that they own a business. Maybe they started the business 20 years ago. They built it up to have 30 employees, right? 50 employees, even 100 employees. I mean, big deal. These people are not untouchable. It's like your teacher at university or your teacher at school, right? It's within their own interest as part of their job to answer queries from the public. So that's why you can ask a question and and usually, a lot of the time, you can get a professional, helpful reply. I'd say about 20 to 30% of the time, okay? But that's good because it means that if there's 100 employers in that city or whatever you're looking at, 20 to 30 of them will respond to you. That's a lot of people to get information from. Susie says, how and when to quit a job? I almost don't need to give you advice on that. I mean, if you are absolutely miserable, I don't think you need me to tell you that you should probably quit. If it's affecting your mental health, and this has gone on for months, I'd say it's probably time to quit. But I mean, you want to try and do it intelligently. You want to try and have something lined up. Okay? Now how to quit a job, just do it professionally. I know it's so satisfying to be able to keep it real and tell people to piss off and, burn your bridges there. But, don't do that. I mean, especially if you live in a smaller place, and also if you're staying within one industry, that might be bad. Maybe word spreads, So I know it's hard, but just resist the temptation to do that. I've done videos on that. I could go and find you. But if you go to, in the YouTube search box, you say the company's expert, which is me, and then say quit. I've done several videos on how to quit, why to quit, should you quit. So check those out. University Pains, I watched your videos. They're really helpful. I used all the tactics you highlighted in your videos, and especially avoiding HR pitfalls. Okay, good. I just ended my interviews and I'm expecting to hear the decision soon. Okay, good. During the HR screen, they asked my salary expectations and I used your methodology. Good. HR gave me the budgeted range. They said that would be fine by me. Do you think now that I'm at the end of the process that I could ask for a range above the budgeted range? Well, listen, I mean, you say you've watched my videos. I directly address that. The time to negotiate is at the end when they've given you an offer, not before. And, the way, if you decide to do this, the way it's going to work is you have to give them some stuff. You say, okay, well, this is less than I was expecting, but fine, I will accept that. This also was maybe less vacation days than I was expecting, less benefits than I was expecting, blah, blah, blah. But I need you to change the number to this. If you change the number to the salary to this, we got a deal and I'll start whenever you want. Something like that. That's the form it's going to take. You've got to give them some stuff. Okay? You've got to be accommodating. And then in return, you're just asking for this little bump, whatever. Okay? So that's how that is going to go if you choose to do it. Okay? Now, I can't tell you if it's in your situation, if this is good or not. It depends on the vibe. It depends on, what this company, the way this company normally operates. I mean, I don't know any of that stuff. So it's hard for me to give specific advice, but I mean, you're the best judge, right? It also depends on what other options you have, how much you want it, and how secure your current situation is. So, I mean, you got to take all that into account, obviously, right? McPick. That just rolls off the tongue. How fast can you say that? McPick. I'm unemployed at the moment and I receive benefit money. That is my only income. Should I leave it behind and start businesses or focus on job search? FYI, I don't have money to start a business. Well, obviously that's going to depend, but not knowing anything else, I would try and find a job as my number one thing. Okay. Now, if there's some obvious thing you could do to be self-employed and you could make money relatively quickly and you've done it before or something, I mean, yes, you could look into that. But all things being equal, probably try and get a job first, okay? So that you have money coming in. That's kind of number one. Then, once you have a job and you have money coming in, then you could maybe think about starting a business or doing... What I would do is I'd try and start a side hustle, right? To minimize your risk, that's usually the way to do it. Get a job, get some money coming in. Now, most of your time and effort will be spent on your job. But if you have a little bit of time and effort left over, maybe the weekends, maybe like in the evening, whatever, okay? You could start the germ of like a side hustle, okay? And it would probably, for a lot of people, it's going to start with what I was saying earlier about get on social media, see if you can reach potential customers, start like testing the message you would say, join some groups, some special interest groups or whatever, like on Facebook or LinkedIn or whatever, and just start throwing out your message and see if you get any bites, see if it resonates with anyone. If no, then keep working on it. If yes, people are interested, now you can start worrying about, okay, now I have to deliver on this thing that I said I'm offering. Okay, now that's a good problem to have because you have people that are interested. And if they're really interested, you can get them to pay in advance. Say, pay up front, and then I will deliver this, right? Because it's not that you need the money. That's kind of secondary. The number one is that you want to see if they're interested enough to actually pay for it, right? That's another big test you need. You can't just have people saying, yeah, I'm interested. I mean, that's good. But then if you have to spend $100,000 to like create it, assuming that they will pay for it, that's a big risk. So you want to see that they're interested enough to actually spend money on it, the kind of money you're asking. So a great way to test that is to say, like, if you're interested here, it costs X, just like you would pay for something from Amazon or something. You pay up front and then they send you the product. So you do the same thing. Now, if you get a whole bunch of people saying, yes, I want this, here's my money, then all you got to do is now deliver it. And you've got money coming in to do it. So it's an easier problem. Okay? But that's sort of the lowest risk way of doing this. Get a job, get some income coming in to pay your bills, then work on trying to do a side hustle. If you get money coming in and it's starting to work, keep it as a side hustle if possible. So you've got a conventional job and then you've got this other thing on the side. They're both bringing money in. Okay. Then if you don't have enough time to really take your side hustle to the next level, then you could consider quitting your job. Okay. So that's kind of the progression I would recommend, all things being equal, just generally to people. Okay, but look, get a job first, okay? And if you don't know how to do that, obviously my channel is, I try and be a resource for that, and there's a lot of other channels, a lot of other sources. But yeah, that's probably the safest bet. Starting a business is risky. Usually your first idea doesn't work. Usually your second and third ideas don't work. Your third or fourth idea might start working, right? So that's what you can expect. That's a typical experience. Everybody's retracting their message. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but Fernando is here. Hello, Fernando. It's Min. Hey, Min. If I'm being honest, I would want to know what are the biggest challenges in your life, sir. Well, look, I mean, I can answer what are the biggest challenges in my life. I can't answer it for anyone else. Look, when it comes to careers, okay, there are many different career paths. When we're young and we go through school, we tend to think getting a job is the only real serious career path, okay? Now, maybe when you're young, getting a job for most people will be the way you start off. Some people will stay working as an employee their entire lives. Other people won't. Okay, there are alternatives. You could be an entrepreneur. I've talked about that. You could be an investor. You could be a business owner. Okay. There's many different things you can do. Okay. So, I mean, depending on what your goals are, you're going to have different challenges. I suppose the first challenge is going to be figuring out what you want to do. The first challenge I think is figuring out what there is. What are the options, right? That's why I say, try and get some broad experiences. I think a lot of people, they come out of school and they think that the world of grown-ups, everybody is on their A game. They know what they're doing a great job. And then you realize, once you get out into the real world, you realize like people, A, don't know what they're doing. They're doing a terrible job. And, you should not listen to them a lot of times, because they don't know what they're talking about. They're free with their advice. And I mean, even me, like I'm giving advice, they're free with their advice, but their advice is often wrong, or if it is right, it applies to maybe them possibly and not other people. So for this reason, I say, like, listen to advice in the beginning, but then go out and try stuff for yourself. That's how you learn. Okay? And when I was young, I know it's not as simple as just saying it. We tend to look at the past through rose-colored glasses. When I was young, you were worried about like money. You were worried about, what do I do with my life? There are other personal challenges, if you're finding a significant other or whatever. There's all that stuff. But what I will say is that it's never going to be as easy ever again to like go out and do something. Once you're older, once you have a family, once you have put in 15, 20 years into an industry, it's hard to just leave, It's a lot easier to leave when you've been there 1 year, I left a career in an industry after 8 years. So I put in 8 years, I went down this path, and then I decided, nope, I do not want to spend the rest of my life doing this. So I didn't start from the beginning, but I took a definite step back and then started in a different industry, and then did side hustles in other industries, and it just opened up from there. Now I know people that are still in that original industry that have they're committed. They've been there 20 years, 30 years. They're like that's it. That's their life. And I know some people that got out before me and they're doing just fine. And they found something that's much more of a fit for them. So, I could go on forever about this, like philosophizing about this, but hopefully that makes sense. You're welcome, Rafi. Okay, so adding to Susie's question, with financial burden and personal commitments, we have to keep at a job with a toxic environment. Yes, temporarily. Okay. I agree that, you need a livelihood. You need money coming in depending on your personal financial situation. You can't just quit, or if you do, there will be consequences that maybe you don't want. However, you're not forced to stay at a job that's toxic long term. Okay, if it really is toxic, if it really is bad, and by that I mean it's bad for your mental health, and it's also not serving your long-term career interests or life interests. Okay, if that's indeed the situation, you never have to stay there permanently. Okay, you might have to stay there for a little bit, but look, if you're frustrated, if you're angry, okay, you're miserable, and it feels like you're trapped, okay? All I can say is take that as much as possible, take that frustration, that anger, and try to sort of get revenge in a way by plotting your exit, like jumping to something more promising. Okay? It can feel more constructive. Okay, you look out for yourself. You have to prioritize yourself to a degree in life. You gotta look out for your own interests. And if you're genuinely unhappy, look, all jobs, I think you can guarantee all jobs are unpleasant and tedious to a point. Okay, that's why they're jobs. That's why you have to pay someone to be there. Because if you weren't paying them, they wouldn't be there, right? So we got to put up with a little bit of that, right? But if it's excessive, okay, then yes. And one of the problems in my life when I was young, in my 20s, is that I didn't have enough experience to be able to tell if something had crossed that line or not. Like, what's a reasonable amount of pain to put up with, right? Okay, are you going to leave like a job that pays you $200,000 a year US because somebody yelled at you one day? You know, you had a very bad day. But are you going to quit your job over that? Probably not. But if you are making minimum wage, you're getting yelled at every day, you've developed a nervous twitch, you can't sleep at night, you flinch at like, everything, you have dreams about work and you have nightmares every night. Like, has it flipped over to where you should quit? Probably. Yeah. But at what point does it flip over? Where's that line? That's what's reasonable, and beyond it is unreasonable. I had a lot of problems with that when I was in my 20s because you don't know. And there are employers that take advantage of this. They hire young people because young people haven't seen a lot of things yet. So you can treat them maybe really badly and then tell them, oh, this is normal. And they'll just sort of believe you because they don't know, right? There are people that take advantage of that. Okay, so I'm not sure if that's what's perhaps going on with you also. They're doing that to you. A lot of times the job itself is not a problem, but the people are the problem. Doing the work is fine. You can do the work. You have no problem doing the work. It's just that you got to deal with some abusive boss that's bullying you every day. And I have left jobs because of that. Because it's like, come on, this is unreasonable. You have the work demands, plus you have that to deal with. I think everyone should be able to tolerate a little bit of that, a little bit. You shouldn't just quit at, somebody speaks kind of in a snotty kind of way to you one day. You shouldn't quit over that. That's not in your best interests. But if it's excessive, of course, yes, get out, and get out in a way that, if possible, you don't take a huge personal financial risk. You have something lined up first. Not a problem, Fernando. That's really not a problem. Hello, I've been watching your videos. They are so helpful. Now I've just got a new job, but I say to myself, should I have made some negotiations about the salary? I felt it is not good. Well, thank you. Nuran, is that? Nuran? Thank you very much. That's very nice of you to say. Okay, so you wish that you had negotiated more. Unless you're prepared to quit over it, generally you can't really do too much. What they do is, traditionally, a lot of companies would every year, they would look at your salary and see, are we going to increase it or are we going to do anything there? Traditionally, companies would do this. So if they're doing that at your company, sometimes they make it very formal. They have a performance evaluation. They call you into the boss. You have a sit-down meeting with the boss, whoever the boss is, and then they tell you, this is how we think you're doing. You're doing this really well, but you could improve on this and this and this. And then, here is your annual salary increase. It goes up by 2% or, whatever. So if they do that, okay, you can maybe do it then, right? And try and negotiate for more. You could try that. Otherwise, I don't think there's really too much you can do unless you are willing to quit over it. Okay? Because they're not just going to give you more money for no reason. Look, it's a wide and wonderful world. Everything happens some of the time. Okay, but generally, the odds are that they're not just going to give you more money because you say, I need more money. Okay, so you have to sort of force their hand. And unless you're willing to quit, there's not too much you can do. Maybe wait a year for the annual salary review. But if you are willing to quit, then yes, you could go back and say, like, look, I've thought about this, and now that I see more of what the job requires, I'd like to work here, but I'm going to need more money. I would need this. And then chances are they're going to say no. And then you say, okay, well, I'm very sorry to hear that. I wish you all the best. And then you leave. And sometimes they will then call you and say, wait. Okay, just come back. We'll give you your money. Right? It was a bluff on their part. They don't want to go through the hiring process again and interview people. It's a pain, right? So it's like, okay, whatever. We'll give you a little bit more money. There you go. Now you're happy, right? Sometimes they'll do this. Depends on the company. But yeah, I mean, the time to negotiate is when they're about to hire you. If you're going to negotiate, that's the time. I'm sorry to say that. I know. I wish I had better news. I drive a truck, and it is not really something I want to do long term. I suspect that depending where in the world you are, that's something that's going to change at some point. We're going to have driverless trucks and all that. That is coming in. It could take 50 years, but it is coming in. Okay, so it's good to have that experience. But yes, if you aspire to something more, I salute you. That's good. Yeah, it's good to want more than that. I mean, I was hearing that, like, truck drivers in the US and Canada, they were making a lot of money. A while ago, I kept hearing about people making $100,000 driving a truck. I was like, wow, But yeah, it can be tedious and there can be issues with it. It's hard to have a family when you're doing that. No problem, Rafi. I'm glad you got something out of that. Well, there you go. That's the end of the questions. Time for some Red Bull. Yes. So listen. One thing I like to talk about on this channel is, careers and things. And as I've already stated today, as a lot of you guys know, there's many types of careers out there. You could become an employee. Usually a lot of people start off like that, but there's other things beyond that. What I would recommend to people is to consider options beyond being an employee. You have to start off being an employee. You have to sort of get that experience, okay, and maybe several experiences. But there's ways of sort of moving beyond that, okay? And I've talked a lot about what I recommend. The way that people should move beyond that is try a side hustle. If you want to learn the fundamentals of business, it will help you, first of all, in a job, okay? We had an example of that earlier in the stream, where if you learn within business, you learn the field of organizational theory. That'll help you understand power politics in a business. It'll help you understand incentives, motivations, communication, okay? And influencing, okay? Big trendy topic these days is leadership. The thing about leadership is that word can mean apparently anything you want it to mean. It has an actual definition, but people use it in all these other contexts, like, leadership basically means how to influence others. If you are a leader, you have someone who has an influence over others. Now, you could think of that in terms of the military, like a general who's a leader, right? They perhaps influence others by ordering them around, by threatening punishments, okay? So it's like a sort of negative influence. It's like, you better do as I say, or else there'll be this penalty, this punishment, right? But that's leadership, because you're getting people to do what you would have them do. Now, obviously, that's not the type of leadership we would want in a voluntary organization, like a business, right? I mean, you treat people like that, a lot of times they're just all going to quit. They're not going to do what you say. They're just going to leave, It's different in the military because you can force people, right? But in business, it's more of a voluntary kind of thing, right? So you get them to do what you want them to do. And one primary motivator is compensation, right? I mean, that fundamentally, that's what compensation is for. People talk about salary. A lot of people are asking about how to negotiate salary. Think about what's the purpose of salary. The only reason businesses pay salary or an hourly rate, like a wage, it's because they're trying to influence you. They want you to show up for work every day. They want you to do whatever you're told to do. They want you to work a certain way. They don't want you to take breaks or goof off. They want you to behave professionally, appropriately, right? So as a way of doing that, they say, if you do those things, we'll let you work here and we will pay you money or give you benefits, right? That's what it's for. It's a way of exerting influence over people, right? And at a certain point, like think of what people have been asking about today in the stream. People say, you know what? It's not worth it anymore. Okay, I'm making money, which is good, but I'm being bullied. I'm miserable. You know, I feel that my life is going nowhere. I'm getting further away from accomplishing personal goals. Right? So it's no longer worth it for me. So even though you're offering to pay me money, sorry, I'm out. Right? Because there's other things that motivate people. And, you know, one of the most basic is to feel appreciated. I know that sounds kind of a little bit wishy-washy, new age kind of stuff when you're talking about business, but it's true. You know, you can pay people huge amounts of money and they will still quit because they are miserable. There's only so much that people can take. I don't care if you're making minimum wage. I don't care if you're making like $750,000 a year. Okay? People will quit. I've seen people quit. So, you know, learning how to influence people, coming up to somebody, like your boss coming up to you, and I've said this a bunch of times, but your boss coming up to you and saying, you know, well done. You know, like, I really appreciate what you did the other day. You know, you are very talented. We're very happy to have you, and I'm proud to be your boss. Keep it up. Keep up the great work, you know. Way to go. You know, how often does that happen to us? Does that happen to you on a regular basis? I mean, maybe some people are fortunate and it does, but most people don't get that on a regular basis. You know, like if your boss, someone you respected, someone you cared about their opinion, they came up and did that to you. How would you feel? Maybe in that moment, you'd feel like, you know, it's almost like, you know, if they didn't pay you that day, almost you'd be okay with it. You know what I mean? It's like you feel good about yourself. It makes you not want to quit. You're like, oh, I like it here. I like it here. This is awesome. And even if doing my job is a little tedious at times, I don't mind. I can put up with that if I get this, right? You know, I'm not miserable. I feel that I'm well liked. I'm appreciated. You know, this is a lot more important than a lot of people realize. You know, of course you have money, you need money, blah, blah. But beyond that, you know, there's other things we need. And you can't go long term without the other things. That's what I'm also seeing, like in the chat, when people are saying, I'm miserable, I work in a toxic environment, I want to quit. How do I quit? You know, imagine if that company started doing this to you and it felt genuine. It wasn't just some corporate bullshit. It was like, you know, you feel it's genuine. It's coming from your direct supervisor and it's heartfelt. You know, maybe you might not want to quit anymore, you know, or to feel listened to. You know, you go to your boss and say like, look, you know, is it possible that we can, I don't know, change the work layout or the environmentals, you know, like the air conditioning or, you know, the heating or the arrangement. It's very dusty in here. And they say, sure, not a problem. Whatever you need. Look, I'll get that taken care of by the end of today. And they did it. You know, how would you feel about that job? You'd probably feel a lot more favorable about it, right? You maybe wouldn't want to quit, right? Now, from a business perspective, what I think is interesting is how much does that cost for the company to do that to you? Practically zero. It's not zero, but it's very close to zero. Right? And that can be the difference in retaining your best employees long term. You know, I don't care if you drive a truck. I don't care if you find driving a truck tedious, if your boss and everyone else you deal with behaves like that, you might not mind driving a truck for a lot longer than you originally planned, right? Rafi says, being beyond an employee needs capital. Money is not always available. That is my fear. Yeah, that's the perception. It's not the reality. It's a reality for some things. Like I said, if you want to start drilling for oil, yeah, you need capital. But it's a lot less of a problem than people think, because you have been directly or indirectly sold this vision of how it works. And how it works is, what people think is that you need to get a giant loan and take a chance, quit your job, and just go for it. Spend a lot of money, hire people, buy equipment, get a building, get an office, get a facility, get a website, get a business card. Incorrect. That's not actually what you need to do. You can start a business with zero. You see, you're going to have two problems, okay? The first one is actually not much of a problem. It's what you're going to do. Now, look, you have skills. You know how to do stuff. You have some skills. Beyond that, you can also teach, consult. You can talk about whatever it is that you know, okay? Right? Each and every one of you could do that today. You can provide something, okay? Let's say you've gone through university, right? Or through school. There are other people out there that are struggling with that challenge right now. Like, I need to get through school. I need to pass my courses and stuff. You have the answer for them. You can help them. You'd say, hey, I've done that course. Here, let me help you, right? And they will find that valuable. They will find that valuable enough to pay for, okay? So everybody, I don't care who you are, you have something to offer, okay? You can do something. You can teach something. How much does that cost to do? Well, nothing. You have all the equipment you need right now. I mean, it might take a little bit of time if you have time on your hands, but everything's going to require time. But you could get started today, right? So you have something of offer. Now, the other problem you're going to have is how to convince people to pay for what you have, what you're selling, right? That's the more complex problem, okay? Everyone who wants to make money has to solve that. Okay, how can I convince people to buy this thing that I'm offering, right? Okay. Now, what a lot of people do is the scenario I described 2 minutes ago, where you get a bunch of money, you get a loan or whatever, and then you start spending it on websites and employees and machines and a facility, office space, marketing costs, stuff like this. None of that addresses this fundamental problem, which is, how can I convince people to buy, right? It's usually the money it's either sort of, I don't want to say pissed away, but it's wasted. That's what I've seen many, many times by many entrepreneurs that I've consulted for and had some relation with. They either waste it outright, or they use it towards operations, towards creating the thing that they're going to sell, right? The problem is, once they get to the end of that process, they haven't addressed the fundamental problem, which is, how do I convince people to buy it? So great, you now have built this amazing product, okay? The problem is that you still don't know how to sell it. So you've built it, you're now out of money, you're offering it for sale, but nobody buys it. You fail. You got to pay back your loan. Failure, right? Okay, that's a very bad way of starting a business. That's for whatever reason, people seem to think coming into this that that's what you do, and that's not what you do. That's usually a very, very bad thing to do. The way you do it is you find a way of doing it for practically no money. Find a way of testing the market for practically no money. How much does it cost to go on social networking, to set up an account, you create a company name or whatever, and then you join a bunch of groups, groups of people that are interested in the thing that you're related to. and then you start saying like, hello, I'm offering this. It costs X. If you're interested, let me know. You can click here to buy, or you can respond to me, email me if you're interested to arrange a purchase, right? Now, if nobody responds, nobody responds. It's obviously not resonating with people. But if you put that out and all of a sudden people are lining up to give you their money, now you have something. Now it makes sense to go deeper, maybe to start spending a little bit of money to pursue this, okay? Or put more serious time into it, okay? It doesn't matter if you spent $100,000, $200,000 before this point. You still need a thing that you can put out there, reach a potential market, like a potential audience that is interested, and have them line up to give you their money, okay? You still need to solve that problem at some point. And the sooner you solve that problem, the better. Because anything beyond solving that problem basically is wasted. There's no point in creating a product if you can't sell it. It's a waste of money, waste of time, and it does a lot of damage to your career plan. Okay? So the only work you have to put in for starting some kind of entrepreneurial venture, maybe a side hustle, whatever, is thinking work. Okay? What are you going to offer? What's the message that you're going to put out to whom? That's the only thing you have to really solve. That's the only relevant problem to solve. And you don't need money to solve that. You need time and you need thought. And a lot of people shy away from thought. They do. They don't want to think. They don't want to try stuff. Anyway, as you can tell, I get pretty animated about this stuff because I've seen so many people not only fail, but get taken advantage of by people that convince them that the only way to start a business is to go into incredible amounts of debt. I've seen people that have a house put up their house so they can finance an entrepreneurial venture and then lose their house. I've seen that. Don't do that, or an inheritance, something like that. Don't do that. Life is long, okay? We learn from our mistakes. If you make a mistake, you try something, it doesn't take off, that's fine. If it costs you nothing, except your time was wasted, and it's disappointing, maybe you build your hopes up, right? And it's kind of always demoralizing disappointing when it fails. But look, then 3 months later, 6 months later, you're inspired to try again with a new idea, right? If it doesn't cost you any money, you can now do this iterative process. You could do this for 20 years if you needed to, right? Okay. The more you learn about business along the way will help you. The more you try stuff will help you, right? The less money you spend to do it will help you. And the more thinking you do will help you. So that's the entrepreneurial thing. Learning business also will help you in your career, okay? Because you're insulated from these problems. Like this question we were talking about, how can you get people to line up to give you their money? That they're willing to pay for a thing that you can deliver, right? Okay? Businesses have to solve that problem. So your employer has solved that problem. And they know the answer to it, okay? You being an employee, usually you're out of the picture. You're not involved in that aspect of the business. So you don't see any of that, but that's the real core of what's going on. What all the executives and the owners of the company, that's what they're dealing with. They're dealing with that problem, okay? Now, if you have an awareness of this, you have an awareness of what's important to customers, where the money comes from, why it comes from that source, what's the element that's really keeping the customers coming in. And I mean, really, I don't mean like you look at it and you think you know. I mean, you actually know because you've tried it. Okay? If it looks like, oh, it's so obvious to you as an employee, try and set up your own business doing the same thing and see how far you get. There's a lot more there than meets the eye. Okay. But the thing is, because you don't know any of that stuff, because you're not concerned with any of that stuff, you're kind of out of it. And so you're not really that important to the company in as much as they need someone to do this menial work. I don't mean to be disrespectful, but that is kind of the situation, right? They are they're calling the shots. And as one of their costs, they have to hire a few people to do some of the work. And that's where you come in, right? Now, wouldn't it be great if you understood everything that they were doing? That would tell you how to contribute to them, how to help them. This would be the kind of things that the big bosses would promote people for, right? You would know what to do to accomplish the goals that they have, right? This is how knowledge of business can help you in your career. Even if you don't want to be like a business person, okay? Even if you're a technical person, you're an engineer or a technician, something like that, or you're a laborer, right? A laborer that can talk really well to customers and convince them to like your company more, employ your company more, things like this, that's very valuable. So anyway, I could go on forever, but it's like listening to somebody rant about something. Anyway, that was inspired by Rafi's one little comment there. So thanks, Rafi. You kind of set me off, but hopefully it was somewhat useful. Being beyond an employee needs capital. Yeah, that's your fear. Thank you once again. This is my first time on this live session. It was really good. Looking forward to the next one. Well, thanks for being here, Rafi. I appreciate that. Min, my buddy Min. Sir, your career advice is full of knowledge. Thank you very much for helping us. I watch your videos every morning. They can be full of motivation, preparation. Oh, well, good. Wow. That's very flattering. You watch them every morning. And thank you for saying that. That makes me feel good. Wisdom Cube. Thanks, good sir. I got a job because of your tips. Really, congratulations, Wisdom Cube. Excellent job. You crushed it. And you should be proud of that. My dog stepped on a bee. I'm sorry to hear that. Do you think you'll be able to recover from this catastrophe? The thing is not to go to pieces, right? You're putting all these emojis like you just absolutely went to pieces. Yeah, try and hold it together and stay strong. And I think we're all right there with you in spirit. As long as the dog didn't bite you, steps on a bee and then bites your ass, I don't know. That's probably not a good thing. No problem, Wisdom Cube. And how do you say that? Crew shower? Congratulations. You got hired. Way to go. You should be proud. Bridget says, your videos on business made me venture into entrepreneurship. I'm so grateful. Well, good. I'm glad. I mean, now remember, the key thing is to manage the risk. Okay, don't take huge financial risks. Okay, substitute thinking work instead of spending money. And like I said at the beginning of the video, one of the key things you can do is instead of trying to figure out how to pay for something, instead try to figure out how you can eliminate the need for that thing. Okay, most people don't even think of that. It never even occurs to them. They just assume, I got to have this, I got to have that, there's no other way. And I'm not even going to think about it because I'm so convinced there's no other way, right? How can I get around having to do this? How can I get around having to pay for that, right? Maybe you can rent it. Maybe there's a substitute. Maybe there's some free alternative. And as a worst case scenario, maybe that's a little overambitious for this phase of my venture. Maybe I will start focusing on what I can make money from that doesn't require that much capital outlay, right? And they think in terms of that, make a lot of money, and then you can pay for this thing later if it's unavoidable, right? So, there's like entrepreneurship is great, but so many people, they screw themselves financially trying it, okay? The key is to be able to not do that, you know? All it takes is thinking, work, and time, especially when we have social networking, especially when you can reach an audience that way. Now that you can reach anyone you want, pretty much, focus on how to get them to respond in the way that you want. Okay? Get to know them, get to understand them, try things, probe it. Say, hey, I offer this, or I offer that, or I can do this, or I can do that, and just put it out there and gauge the feedback. All the while learning about marketing, learning about business. Okay? Some of the fundamental principles. I mean, why reinvent the wheel? Why learn things the hard way when you can just crack open a book and it gives you all the answers right there that'll shave years off your journey, right? So, I mean, do that too. But you have to try stuff first to realize the importance of this knowledge. That's also why, someone was asking about MBAs before. That's also why a lot of people, including me, they don't recommend like getting an MBA. If you're going to do that, getting it like right out of school. Get like a bachelor degree or some other thing first. Go out into the workforce for several years. Have a few jobs. See what's going on. See the real world. Then come back and get an MBA. It'll really put context to what you're learning. It'll feel like gold. It's like, this thing that I couldn't figure out, this thing that I don't understand. Here's how it all works, If you're a student, you're just learning this stuff. It's just yet more boring school, and you don't really realize the impact it could have and the usefulness of it all. So, yeah. Yeah, have a good night, Rafi. Thank you for joining. And as a reminder, I'd like to remind everyone of this, right? You can join my channel and get extra videos from me. You also get priority when it comes to like answering questions and things like that. So I know some people are into that. And I have my 2 courses there. So if you are stuck, if you are stumped for trying to get a job and you just don't know what to do, you've tried some stuff and it doesn't work, and you're looking to break the impasse, okay? I took all my sort of knowledge on that topic and laid it out in a sort of step-by-step process from beginning to end, covering everything you need to do and multiple ways of getting a job, and I put it all into that course, okay? So here, I'm looking at myself. It's a flipped image, so I always got to do the opposite. But yeah, you can check that out. There's a link in, like it says, there's links in the description. And today, if you are interested in getting an overview of what an actual MBA is, I have something called the $100 MBA. And you're basically getting the same source, the same knowledge, using the same textbooks as you would in a university MBA. And the books that I've put together in the reading list that cover each of the topics in the program, they are the definitive texts on the topic that are used in a lot of universities around the world. Several of them are used at Harvard in their MBA program, their business program. And, you can get them for cheap. Okay, like the latest edition of these books might be like $100. Okay, but 1 or 2 editions old. They're not the latest. They're like, maybe 5 years, out of date. Like not out of date, but like they came out 5 years ago. It's basically the same material with different pictures and possibly some different case studies, but those are very minor. It's like 5% of the book is maybe altered, but you can get that edition for like $5 or $10. Okay, so if you're really looking to save money and get the full business sort of learning, here is an alternative. Okay, it's not accredited because There are no tests, no evaluations, no assignments, no exams. So I have no way of knowing how much you've gotten out of it. Okay, there's no way to test the knowledge. But I don't care about that. It'll never be accredited, because if you just want to get an overview of it and that's all you're interested in, you can do that. If you do want to go really deep, you can do that too. Okay, it's whatever you're interested in. And this is the real knowledge written by the world's foremost experts in each area, in each topic. Okay, so if that's of any interest to you, check out the link in the description. Several people have bought that course this week, and so that's really awesome. I've got some great feedback on it. It's basically what I wished I had when I was in my 20s. I wish someone had sort of told me to just sort of slap me and told me, like, okay, go learn this now. Okay, that will help you. I got my MBA like after I was a CEO and stuff like that. I was thrown into that, and I knew enough to be able to do the job, but I took an MBA afterwards, and it's like, I wish that I'd taken it before. So anyway, so if that's any use to you, check those out. Where are we here? Alfredo, my overseas work experience doesn't show up on the work number and other employment verification sites. Will this hurt me? To be honest with you, I'm not even aware of the work number. Back when I was doing this 10 years ago, there was no sort of international standard or verification service that certainly that we were aware of that did that. Maybe this is a new thing. It's good that they have that, if that's what it is. I also think that, just playing on trends, most employers probably still won't be aware of it or be using it. Maybe that's not true, but if I had to guess, I would say that some people are using it, but others aren't. So it still is worthwhile doing this sort of the old school way and going and contacting potential employers and talking to them. And I mean, that alone is a way to get a job. The fact that you have the initiative to reach out to them, that counts heavily in your favor, okay? That's like getting a job through networking, where basically they get a sample of what it's like to deal with you. So if you call them up and say, like, hello, I'm interested in possibly emigrating to this country, into this city, and I have a background in this, and I know that you guys do this type of work, and I was wondering, do you ever hire people that are immigrants that don't have work experience in your country? Do you ever do that? And what would be the process that you would need for someone like me to go through to consider us, or something like that, and just having that conversation with them, that signals that A, you're serious and you're interested, and also you're professional and you're pleasant to deal with. So, I mean, already you're jumping up, in, sort of how well they regard you and how favorably they would consider you. Okay. And then you're asking them for their opinion and their requirements. And you're also signaling that you will adhere to what they would like you to do. So that's showing them how agreeable you are. So, I mean, just the act of doing this will score you a lot of points with that employer. Okay. So if they do employ, immigrants just coming into the country, they're looking for the first job in the country, that will help greatly. Okay. Despite what maybe online employment verification stuff there is out there, this will still set you above the crowd. It'll also get you a lot of points and so on, especially if you're talking to somebody very high up, like the owner or the CEO or one of the executives. So that would be my recommendation for that. Now, I don't know if this thing hurts you or not. Like, I don't know anything about it, really. But I mean, once again, the way to find that out for sure is to contact some potential employers and say, this very thing that you just said here in this comment, the work number, right? It doesn't have my thing. Is that a big problem? Do you guys look at that? Is that like an absolute requirement for, if I was to, emigrate in 3 months to your city, would you absolutely need that? Or is there a way around it? What else would I have to show? Something like that, right? That's how you find out. Most people are afraid to even call somebody or even talk to anyone. Now, if you're a real introvert and you're very afraid of this, and I get it, you can do it all on things like LinkedIn. Just send a message, right? You can't ask for long explanations on LinkedIn, but you could say like, I'm very interested in working for your company. I know you guys do work in this particular industry, and you maybe ask one quick question, right? So anyway, that's something that you could do that I'd recommend if you're in that situation. And like I kind of had before, I had that video that's, if this is kind of, you don't know how to go about doing any of that, where is it? There's this video right here. This is a video on my main channel, The Company's Expert, how successful people get jobs. So it shows you how to use Google Maps and LinkedIn together to find the businesses or the employers in your industry in your location, in the location you're looking at. Okay. And then you use LinkedIn to see inside those organizations, to the individuals, then you can contact somebody. That's the way you discover them, and that's the way you make a contact with them. Okay. So check out that video. That's a sort of introduction to it. I go deeper in my course, my Get Hired course, about how to do that, but I have a couple of videos. This is the most recent. I make those videos. I'm surprised that they're not more popular because they are a solution to a lot of people's problems. It's just very hard to package it. And I don't want to link bait people and say like, this is the answer to all your career problems or something, It's also how people get jobs like higher up, right? They don't respond to job ads. They don't talk to recruiters. You tend to get jobs through networking. And networking is not already knowing people. It's having reached out to people. That's what networking mainly is. Because for the reasons I just said, when you reach out to someone, it signals all those things. It gives them a free sample of who you are, and it puts you ahead of the running. Your resume jumps to the top of the pile when you do that, because you're the only one that they've met. Who would you hire? Someone you've never even met, they're a total stranger, or someone you've already had dealings with that you got along well with. They're professional, they're intelligent, they're asking appropriate things, right? And they're obviously interested. They're not just applying for 10,000 jobs, none of which they're really interested in, or they even know what they're getting into. But this person is. This person knows about you and specifically wants to be hired by you, right? Who would you hire? Right? You'd hire the person that you know. So I mean, that's some of the benefits of doing this, right? And as I say, the other intangible benefit is that if you learn how to do this, if you do have ambitions of sort of rising higher in organizations, I mean, that's how people get those jobs, right? So you are learning this process. You have a head start. Andre says, thank you for your videos. How long is it optimal to work in one place? That's going to vary, but I would say no less. Like, okay, if it's like a minimum wage job, maybe 6 months. But generally for a career type job, I would say no less than a year. Okay, you need to stay at least a year, okay? If there was one number, I'd say 2 years, okay? But at least 1 year. And I don't think you need to work anywhere for more than 3 years to really pick up most of the essentials, right? I mean, of course, people will tell you like, oh, I've been here 30 years and you need 30 years of experience to do what I do. People will say that, In the vast majority of situations, I think that's baloney, right? Maybe like lawyers and things, high-level lawyers, maybe. but everything else, no. Okay, so probably 2 years is good for a career job. You're welcome, Alfredo. Thank you for saying so, and thank you for being here. Frank says, how could someone with a liberal arts degree develop real-world credentials? Very simple, Frank. Go out and do something. Okay, like if you're like, say you know how to write, like liberal arts. I'm not a liberal arts person myself, so I'm not sure exactly what's in there. But you know, something like journalism. So I don't know if that's liberal. Is that liberal arts? Literature, like English. Like you can write fiction. You can write, more advanced stuff. You can, you can write like maybe like that's something you could use those skills to be a great communicator. So I would say go out and do something, okay? You don't need to stand there and ask permission, like meaning that, someone needs to give you a job. Go do something on the side. You could have a vlog, you could have a blog, you could do communications. You could go teach a course. You could offer something online. Most of what we do involves communication. So if you have something that gives you an edge on a certain type of communication, that would be an obvious thing. There's a lot of really bad communicators in the world. Now, like liberal arts, does that like include fine arts, like graphic design, anything like that? Obviously, there's some really obvious career paths with that, right? But the thing is, like getting a job is like, you're sort of standing with your hand out, waiting for someone to give you something, right? We are conditioned to think that that's what we have to do. The reality is that you can go out and achieve some things on your own. You can do things that you can put on a resume, okay? And that's what I would try and do. And they're not going to give you a job because of your degree. They're going to give you a job because of your accomplishments, because of what you've done. Maybe you edited a publication. Maybe you I don't know. There's a lot of stuff. Like the more you think about it, the more things will present themselves. What you could use those skills. You look around in the world, and where do you see those skills being applied? Okay, and don't just say universities. I'm talking about like those skills. Okay, how are you useful? What problem could you solve? Right? When you look around, do you see people screwing up something that you know how to do? Right? Look for that and then go out and do something. You don't have to get paid for it. Just do something. And that's the best way. Now, the other thing is, if you're talking about getting a job, the other part of this is kind of like I was just sort of talking about. I don't know if you caught the last sort of 15 minutes, but the way you get a job through networking, okay, in that case, like the example I spent like the last 10 minutes on, I was saying, contact a company, talk to them, ask them, what would you need to see, blah, blah. Okay, I talk about that extensively on my channel. If you get a job that way, the reason why it's really cool is because they're not hiring you based on your resume. Now, they're hiring you based on their encounter with you. If you were easy to deal with, you made them feel good by asking about them and being impressed by what they do. If you were professional in dealing with them, you signaled your interest specifically in them by contacting them. Okay? And a lot of other things there. Now they're hiring you not based on what's on your resume. They're hiring you based on how you were to deal with and your enthusiasm and your professionalism, right? And that's the way to get a job when your resume alone is not like a slam dunk, okay? So coincidentally, that's how people get jobs when they're changing careers, because everything on your resume has to do with your old career. Like say you were a marine biologist, right? Now you want to be a teacher, okay? Now, everything on your resume is going to be about marine biology. You're trying to get a job as a teacher. There's no teaching experience on your resume, right? But people successfully change careers every day. A lot of people do. And usually the way they do it is through networking. They talk to a school. They don't apply for the job at the school. They contact the person there. Maybe somebody high up in the school or the university. And they say, like, look, I've spent, 20 years as a marine biologist, but I would like to teach. Now, I have done some public speaking in that I gave tours in a job at a museum when I was giving tours of, the marine biology section of the museum, right? I can speak. I find it interesting. I love teaching. I like dealing with people. I always felt I'd be a great teacher, and I have a large knowledge base. So, would it be possible to get like for you guys to give me a chance, maybe some small thing like a contract, teaching position just for like one course, one term or something, is it possible? And they may say, look, a recruiter might not want to talk to you because they don't see any teaching experience on your resume, and that's a deal breaker. But a lot of other people would say, you know what? Yeah, I think you could probably do a good job as a teacher. You're easy to deal with. I have no problems communicating with you. I see your enthusiasm. You've made a compelling case for yourself. We actually do have a vacancy coming up. And if you're interested in that, I could, sort of arrange for an interview, something like that, right? So you can shortcut the entire problem with your resume just by using the networking approach, right? 75% of people in this world who get a job get it through networking. That's more than people who get it by applying for a job with purely on the strength of their resume. Okay, so hopefully that's some stuff to think about, okay? Oh, my throat's starting to get sore. I'm just too passionate. I'm a slave to my passions. It's because I care too much. And it's always been a weakness. You like that? You like that self-aggrandizement? But thanks, Frank, for the question. Nobody's asked me about that. And if you could, if you don't mind, like what is liberal arts? Like what are all the things in it, or some of the big things in it? If you could say that, I'd be interested to learn. Does attachment internship really help? I don't know what you mean by attachment, but if you're talking about internships, yes, they can help. Some more than others. Number one, you get industry experience when you're a student. Number two, you can get references. Number three, you can get letters of recommendation for people in the industry. Number four, you can make networking connections when you're inside of these companies so that you can maybe get hired there afterwards, or other opportunities present themselves. So yeah, for multiple reasons, internships can be very useful. If you don't get one, don't sweat it. It's not the end of the world. Like there's plenty of other things, but yes, they are useful. I just got my bachelor's in journalism and totally lost whether to start my own business or apply for jobs and get into the field first and get experience. Try both. There's nothing preventing you from trying both. If you're looking for a job right now, keep looking, okay? If you're between jobs, you don't have a job, then devote some of your time to doing, your own venture, okay? Like a side hustle, or just do stuff that you can put on your resume, write articles. Like, for example, on LinkedIn, I'm a terrible writer. I hate writing. I hate writing scripts for my own videos. It's like pulling teeth to me. I don't mind talking about stuff, but when I have to actually write an essay or an article, I find that very challenging. I think I can do it. I'm kind of mediocre at it, but it doesn't come naturally. Anyway, years ago, when I first got on LinkedIn, you can publish your own articles. So I wrote I think 3 or something articles. They're not very good, but they're still on there today. And, you can do that stuff and put it out there, and you can start to get a following, right? If you say the right thing and you position it in the right place. So, people who would be interested see it, right? You can start creating an awareness or a buzz or a following sort of on your own. You don't need anyone's permission to do this, and you don't need anyone's services to do this. You have all the equipment you need right there, right? So why not do both? And if nothing else, it's something you can put on your resume. And so when they interview you, you say like, look, I've done this. This is what I've done. I've written these articles. I've put them out there. I've got a response. There's been X number of likes, X number of comments, X number of responses. I was recognized by these people for having done this. And if you're trying to get a job as like, you're a journalist, but maybe you want to work in business as part of their public relations department or something that could use the journalism skill set, it's great if you can say like, look, here's what I've done. And you can go read it for yourself and you can get a sample of my work and you can see the impact it's had. I'm not sort of trying to pitch you that it could have an impact. I'm telling you, it's already had an impact. This is what I can bring to your venture, right? This is what I can do for you. So do both of those. Look for a conventional job and start doing stuff on the side in your own right. So whichever one takes off first, you sort of double your chances. Min, my buddy Min. I'm starting to know Min's background. My background is agricultural scientist. I remember you telling me that last time. Although I am now an MBA, I'm still learning industrial engineering. Oh, that's got some high-level stuff there. IT and data analysis. My strength is full of curious learning and apply it to the real world. Good. That's quite an arsenal of things that can serve you. Okay. Industrial engineering is very useful. An MBA is very useful. IT is very useful, and data analysis is very useful. I mean, I think all four of those are kind of trending in the last 20 years as, growth areas. So I would imagine you could do really well. Maria says, thanks for your good advice. I appreciate it. Well, thank you for saying so, Maria. I appreciate you telling me that. It's really feels really good to get a compliment, and thank you for doing that. Greetings from Finland. Greetings from Canada. Are you in Helsinki? Helsinki was the capital last time I checked. And the other thing I know is that, or I believe, is that the Finnish language is very different from like every other European language. That's my understanding. A lot of the European languages, they sort of have common bases and roots and things, but Finnish is kind of its own thing, as I understand. It's almost like Gaelic or Welsh, like in Britain. So yeah. Anyway, we are reaching the end of this. It's been over 2 hours. I'm starting to lose my voice little by little. So I want to thank everyone for being here. You guys are awesome. Thank you for showing up. You guys are all pursuing self-improvement, which is great. Okay. You could really give yourself a much easier time in life by learning about things first, and don't just listen to me, listen to a lot of other sources and, have a lot of experiences, and you will come out on top. It's just that simple. Some people it'll be within a very short amount of time. Some people take longer. Most people it takes a little bit longer, but you will come out on top at the end of the game. And that's what it's all about. So thank you very much. Check out my courses. If you're interested, join my channel. And if you are not a subscriber to my second channel, a lot of people don't know I have a second channel. The company's Ep.4. So go there right now, subscribe. That's where these live streams end up. That's where this one's going to be posted. And you can check those out and a bunch of other videos I have there too. So thank you very much. You guys are all awesome. Take care. And I will see you on my next live stream where I talk about business, which will be next Sunday at the same time. Thanks a lot and take care.